On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 46. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I enter a motion to reconsider.
The motion is entered.
Sorry. And I move to proceed to calendar number 436, S4784.
Shalom, Yasha Allah. First and foremost, I'd like to give all glory, honor, and infinite praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Chachotash. Double honors to beloved elders and the apostles, a great millstone that taught me this truth. While peace and salutations to all you hopeful elect document out there laboring, that are pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. This is your brother Amar from the GMS Boise, Idaho camp. And I am doing this lesson based on that quick video that I showed you, which was a vote to merge the U.S. and Israeli militaries together, which did not pass, because for that to pass, 3/5 of the whole legislative and Congress needed to agree. And as you can see, the vote was 50-50, so therefore it was not passed, because they need a majority vote for that to happen, and since those numbers weren't met, it was struck down, so as of right now, it is not passed. But one of the main takeaways that I wanted to highlight from what happened is that every single Republican, so-called, voted for the merger. And what I wanted to highlight with that is it goes to show you that when the Noahide laws, which are 7 laws that are going to govern the so-called world, based on so-called you wish law, the G wishes law that they created, your own government here in the so-called land of the free is going to vote against you. And all these nations ultimately are working together to go against, prophecy, in the sense that they want to get rid of the identity of the Israelites. That's why you had, in the beginning of this year, you had a lady from the Liko Hat land say that the greatest threat that Israel has is black men in America, the black youth in America. And they're talking about, the prophets. And the message and the information that we're exposing, starting with the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and what their labor has done to bring us to this point. But you can see that everything that has been going on in the news and these mergers and this data centers, it's all going towards prophecy, which is a one world order based off of the digital RFID micro C-HIP. And again, the main takeaway that I wanted to highlight from this video just goes to show you that ultimately your own government is going to work against you, even if you think that they're the so-called, Republican right government, the left government, Democrats, whatever it is. Ultimately, you are going to see that the people that you voted for, you gun-toting, Bible-thumping Edomites, they're going to turn against you, and they're going to sell you out, to the Liko Hat land. And I saw a map of the United States of how much money each, state gives in special taxes to that land over there. And it accounts to almost, I think it's like 17 billion from all the states, from extra tax state revenue that we send them. That doesn't even include other different packages given to them by the, our own government. But, with that being said, I wanted to go quick into explaining the Noahide laws, because this is going to tie hand in hand, because again, your own government is going to vote for this. This is the 7 Noahide laws are a set of universal moral imperatives that, according to Jewish tradition, were given by God to Adam and Noah as a binding covenant for all humanity. That's made up. So let's see, is that in the Bible? Are Noahide laws in the Bible? Are Noahide laws in the Bible? The 7 laws of Noah are not found as an explicit list in the Bible. Okay, point blank, period. But it says, according to the Jewish oral Torah, the Talmud, specifically Sanhedrin 56a through b, the 7 laws apply to all non-so-called Jews. So again, you got to do the research into the Noahide laws, and I'm just going through the basic questions that people are asking. What happens if you break a Noahide law? Liable for capital punishment by a valid, locally established court system. So that means, the unaliving punishment, because that's what capital punishment means. What is this? So that's just the point, But so this is going to be a made up laws, that are going to be passed by your government to ultimately bring in, this beast system, And with that being said, I'm going to get some of these scriptures right off the top that was making me think of this certain things. What is it? Salakia Yasharallah. Yeah, that was one of them. What was it? One. I'm tripping. It was Joel 2 and 1. No. Salaki Yashar Allah. Habakkuk. I want to say it was Habakkuk. Or Haggai 2 and 1. Man. No, Salaki Yashar Allah. It's slipping my mind right now. Oppressed man. Micah 2 and 2. Here, this is here. I'm gonna go here. Salaki Yashar Allah. Micah 2 and 1. This is Micah 2 and 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And this I wanted to bring out because this is them devising iniquity. Creating new laws to make a man offender for a word. And also they're thinking the evil upon their beds because they're as soon as they wake up to the time they're going to sleep, they thinking about this. When the morning is light, they practice it, which, hey man, when it comes to the new day and they call their advisors together and say, hey, I had a new idea. I'm going to put $1 billion in this. I'm going to put $1 trillion in that. I'm going to put $300 million in that, and they start acting these laws. They go into certain local governments and they start, manipulating that government how they want it to be, and ultimately that's what you've seen infiltrating the whole Babylonian government, even though this has never been, so-called free and to do our own. Babylon has always had handlers, let's just say that. How Sleepy Joe Biden had to walk around with a handler to make sure he didn't walk off the stage. Well, Babylon has always had handlers, from these other nations. Namely the Lico hats, even from the conception of the Federal Reserve, and you can look into the history of why the Titanic actually sunk to get that information. But Salakia, not to go off, but it is all connected because you can see how many times that the government has been involved in making sure that the you wishes agendas are being completed. They practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And who has the power right now? And we go to it all the time, but Job 9 and 24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof, if not who and where is he? And I'm going to go to it after I get through this little section, but I wanted to finish these that I have right here. This is Micah 2 and 2. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. And, that's ultimately what they're going to do when they pass these Noahide laws. And as you can see, the 50% of your government is already down and with it to merge the military. So how much more so when it starts to being the police? Because most people don't know that Mossad and the actual Israeli IDF, they actually train Atlanta police officers, special operations units. All here in your government already. They're in your police academies. They're in your ICE your ICE trays. Getting that a lot of federal funding. Why do you think ICE was able to get so much funding unless they had a little small hats and big noses and long curly dreads on each side of their sideburns, man? This is continuing verse 3. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. Ultimately, Esau, Edom being that enemy number one. And I'm going to go to that Job 9:24, because this is another way that he's covering the faces of the judges, meaning taking the identity and getting rid of, the Israelites' image, and also getting rid of an image is changing the laws, inventing laws called the Noahide laws and saying, oh yeah, this is a Jewish tradition that must be followed. No, we already have the scriptures. That's why the scriptures say none shall want her mate, because there is no other book that validates the Bible other than the Bible. No, the Bible doesn't need this book and that book. All that just proves what the Bible's already saying. This is Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And that's why we read here in Micah 2:2 that he practices it because he has a power of his hand. It's in the power of his hand to do it. And so like in Micah 2:1, the bottom sentence, because it is in the power of their hand. Yes, right, man. So you see how these scriptures all go into, pointing who the devil is, man. Who's passing the laws? Whose face is on the money? What group of people can he not talk about openly without getting labeled anti you know what? But you can call a nigga, a beaner, a spick, a Indian, a savage, and get off my land, and I'm a real American, and he's cussing at a Gadite, man. The closest thing to a so-called real American that you really would find. Not saying Amerigo Vespucci, or American, the word bitter, but in the sense that people know it. A Gadite is, a Native American, as the world calls them, Native American, which they're native to Yashar Allah. And ultimately the Northern Kingdom and all these other nations are going to be put to shame when they find out who the true identity of the real Israelites are, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And this message is to the elect and to the elect only. To you men, O ye men of Israel, I call, because it is your time to get up and receive this message and be edified and lead, your household. Go out there on the streets and teach and show yourself a living sacrifice until the dark and gloomy day of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And to keep persevering until, hey man, those missiles drop. Until you're, like some of the brothers say, until your feet hit the gold streets, man. And with that, hey man, Lord willing that this lesson was edifying, because I just wanted to shine light on that, showing you even though it didn't pass, the fact that they even wanted to do it in the first place, the fact that they even voted more than 50% in the first place shows you that they're ready to pull the trigger on your so-called American dream, and that they will choose their handlers above you in an instant. So Lord willing that this lesson was edifying unto the elect. Till next time, I would like to give all glory, honor, and infinite praises to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Chodash, and double honors to beloved elders and the apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. While peace and salutations to all you hopeful elect document out there laboring, that are pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. Till next time, Lord willing, Shalom.